Good morning, and good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. So, cross country is pretty much here. We've either started it or are about to start it, right? And I want to go over some things that can help you make big gains in cross country. And again, this is speaking from somebody who competed at the high school level and college level and coach at those levels as well. And some of the things that I noticed over the years is that if you run the same course multiple times, right? There's a way you can go back and say, okay, what happened the first time? Okay, and this is where coaches, assistant coaches, you have other athletes that are racing and deploying people to take splits of your athletes as they come in and so on and so forth. And I'll give you a couple of examples too. But today, the focus of the day is where you can make big gains in the cross country season. And now, big gains is critical, right? It's absolutely critical. When you have 7 athletes, 5 score, you make gains wherever you can in these areas, right? So, because at the end of the day, the least amount of points wins cross country as a team sport. And you want to try to close the gap wherever you possibly can. The front people are generally going to stay in the front, right? And kind of run what they run. So this is where you have the opportunity to kind of take the back end, and even with some exceptions in the front, to the back end and kind of close the gap between, right, from 4, 5, 6, 7, or 5, 6, 7, or 3, 4, 5, or whatever it might be, towards the front and close the gap, right? So again, I'm going to use the first example, Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, New York. I'm from New York, right? This is where I competed at the high school and college level and coached as well, okay? And this is how it's broken down. I've measured it multiple times with a wheel. With the 4K course, let's just say Manhattan College Cross Country Invitational, right? One of the most premier cross country invitations for high school. It's 4 kilometers. And to break it down, the start in the open field takes you right. And before I go any further, the path is wide. And you're basically going to be going like this and going working towards a narrow path, right? To get into there at some point. So people will go out hard. So that's just something to keep in mind. We'll get into that later. But people will go out fast and eventually settle. And people go out too fast, will fall apart pretty quickly because you're going to hit the hills later, not in the beginning. Okay? So going back to this, it's 1,200 meters flat, and the back end of that 1,200 meters is to start the uphills. That gets you to the bridge. And then bridge to bridge is a 2-kilometer back loop of rolling hills. All the rolling hills are in this back loop. Okay, now you're at 2 kilometers there. So you add 1,200, 200. I mean, at the 2K, you're at 3,200 now, right? 2 miles. With a 4K race, what's left? 800 meters. Okay, from the bridge, then you go downhill, which is about, I'd say about 100, 150 meters. It takes you right up to the open field. So it's 800 meters downhill to the flats, all open field to the finish. That's how the course is broken down. Okay, for the 5K, whether it's PSAL or you're running some type of NXN regional or whatever it might be, and even to a certain degree collegiate women, right? It's the same thing that applies, but you're starting at a different point in the open field. You're running most of the open field, or at least half of it. Now you go and you're just adding 1,000 meters. So you go from 1,200 to 2,200 meters, flat to uphill. Because the same thing applies once you get into the back hills, right? Once you get into the cow path. So now it's 2,200 meters, a little more than a mile from flat to uphill to the bridge. And then your 2-kilometer rolling hill loop, and then the same 800 meters downhill to the flats and finish. Now, for the most part, high school races end on one side of the field. For the most part, college races end on the other side. So when you come down the open field, you turn left. That's mostly where the high school races end. Now, in some cases, it's now on the right-hand side, depending on which events are. If it's Manhattan College now, some of them are finishing to the right. But a lot of high school races, you generally finish to the left. College, when you get onto the open field, you go to the right. You're just going to go around, basically running parallel to the street there. It takes you all the way to the finish. Okay, so that's generally how the races unfold there. But now let's get into this. Okay, with that in mind, going out hard in a race like I talked about, settling in and finishing fast. Obviously, that's the objective. But now, take into consideration: do you recover the same way on a rolling course versus a flat course? Right? The rolling hills are in the middle of the course, okay, and not the flats in the middle. We got a question. Multi-Kenny, let's go. I'm excited for cross country season too, man. I really, really am. And I hope you are too. I hope you have a great season. Again, where are the hills in the cross country course? This is where communication with the coaches comes into play, right? Talk to your coaches. Our coaches, I encourage you to talk to your athletes. Run down the course and say, okay, this is where the hills are going to be. I want you to be ready for it, especially if you don't get to run there before the race. If you get to train there, like in Van Cortlandt Park, a lot of high school, college programs will train at Van Cortlandt Park if they race at Van Cortlandt Park. So they know the lay of the land more than most. Okay, so that's one question I would ask. And also, do you know about the course ahead of time? Like I mentioned, this is where communication between coach and athletes is critical. That way you can look at it, you can break it down and say, okay, where are the hills going to be? And are my workouts or my training set up in such a way that prepares my athletes for this type of experience? Or are we just doing flat stuff on the track, constant speed stuff, right? Long reps over rolling hills. Well, long reps over rolling hills is fine to a degree, but then it's okay. It's also good to do tempo runs on flat surfaces. Also good to do some other things on the flat surfaces as well, or tempo runs over rolling hills, which is a slower pace but a continuous run without stopping, which kind of simulates these types of race situations. Okay, now let's get into this. Here's some types of workouts. Okay, this is a bookend tempo which simulates the race, going out hard, settling in, and finishing hard. Okay, now the workout itself is a 300 or a 400 meter. You can even start at 300 and progress towards 400 if you'd like. You take a 90-second recovery. Then you go right into a 20 to 25 minute tempo. Now at this point, you should be building towards that tempo. If you're not there yet, I would be building towards it. Okay? Build towards at least 20 minutes if you're in high school, 25 minutes if you're college women running 6K. Then you take that same 90-second recovery, and then you do another rep on the back end of 300 to 400. That 300 to 400 rep could be at 3K pace. It could be at mile pace at the end of it if you have enough in your legs to finish at mile pace. Okay, that workout simulates the race environment that you're going to be experiencing on a regular basis. Now, caveats to this workout, you can cut the rest. You can do that same exact workout, but cut the rest from 90 seconds to 60 seconds the second time you do it. And then the third time you do it, you cut the rest from 60 seconds to 30 seconds. That's basically going to simulate what the race is going to feel like. And by cutting that rest, gets you closer to what the race experience is going to actually be like. Okay? And you can even do a flat tempo run one week. You do a rolling tempo run the following week, which simulates what some of these races are going to do. Okay? And you can even incorporate the flat bookend reps at 300 or 400. You can do them flat one time, and you can do them uphill the second time. Or you can do the beginning one uphill, the last one flat. Okay? You can kind of mix and match any way you want in a way that's going to simulate the race as much as you possibly can. But that fast rep in the beginning and fast rep at the end is designed to what? Simulate going out hard without having to go lactic, without having to have junk in your legs. Because recovering in the uphills is a heck of a lot harder than recovering on the flats. You need to know what it feels like to experience this before the race unfolds. Okay? So these are good sessions to consider incorporating into your training to prepare you for these exact scenarios and races, especially Van Cortlandt Park, whether it be Sunken Meadow, whether it be a lot of these courses, Bowdoin Park, right? Brown, some of the faster cross country races, McQuaid, all these courses, Rose Tree Park in Pennsylvania, right? It's a rolling hill course, a tough course. These are the types of workouts that will help prepare you for these type of scenarios. Okay, now let's go to women's 6 kilometer cross country course, because it's very similar to the 5K course, but you're adding an extra K worth of volume. It's a similar approach, but getting to the point where you're incorporating 6 kilometers worth of volume in sessions, even at race pace, you want to build towards 6 kilometers, right? Even if you progress from current race pace to goal race pace, you say, okay, I ran 19 minutes on this course. At the end of the season, I want to run 18 minutes, right? Whatever it might be. So let's just say 5K. Or I ran 21 minutes 21 minutes for the 6K. I want to run 20 minutes for the 6K. You're progressing towards this stuff over time. And you can start workouts at 21-minute pace and work towards 20 minutes towards the end of the workout. Okay? That's a good progression to do. And again, are you taking splits? Like I gave you splits in Van Cortlandt Park that you could do. Essentially two splits you could take, right? Here, are you taking splits every 1K or every 2K or every 3K rep? These are good components of data as a coach to say, you can go back and look and say, okay, this is what my girls are at this point. And the next time you run it, okay, certain girls were faster here, but they were slower on the second part. Certain girls were slower here, but they were faster on the second part. It gives you a lot of data to help you modify training if you need to modify the training. Okay, and again, keep in mind, keeping that mental note, where are the hills? Are the hills in the beginning? Are they in the middle or in the end? It's important to know where the hills are at, if there are hills, so you can design your training program accordingly to prepare them for these races. Okay. Next up, 6K. And again, the 6K is more frequently raced in college, yes, on the women's side. Sometimes you get it for the girls in high school, but not very often. But it's a very similar training philosophy. You're going to be, almost preparing them for 8 kilometers, but when they're racing 6 kilometers. So over distance is it's not a bad thing to do early in the season. 25-minute tempo runs, right? 4 times a 2K in a workout, right? 6 or 7 times a 1K in a workout. 5 to 6 times 1,200 in a workout. 4 times a mile in a workout. These workouts are all appropriate for 6 kilometers. You can even add some speed on the back end of it as well to simulate that turnover that they're going to need to deploy at the end of the cross-country course. And keep in mind as well, if the hills are in the middle, do you have enough in the legs to turn over at the end of the race when you need it? Okay, this is where incorporating this type of stuff into the workouts is really, really, really important. Let's just say you do. The workout itself is 6 times a kilometer. But maybe you do the middle. Instead of doing 2 times a K in the middle, you could do a 2K rep over rolling hills. Okay, harder. And then you go back to the 1K reps after that. It simulates the rolling hills being in the middle of the race. Or if the rolling hills are in the beginning of the race, you could do a 2K rep in the beginning of the workout. And then just continue to do your K reps. Okay, just something to keep in mind. I'm gonna elaborate on this a little bit. Now it's 8K, 5 miles, 10 kilometers cross country, college men. Are you taking splits every mile or every 2? Or do you even have the ability to do that? I definitely encourage you to get splits as often as you possibly can. It gives you a lot of data to work with, a lot of intel to work with. Okay, even if it's every 2 kilometers, it gives you a couple of splits. Or if you're at the 5K, I want to know where they're at the 5K. And if I take the first mile, are they speeding up at the 5K? Are they averaging something similar? How's the race unfolding? And this is the other thing too. You're going to find some races that go out really, really hard and people hang on for dear life. You're going to find some races that are progressively fast. You're going to find some races that are fast from the gun. You're going to find some races that are slow and wait until the end to kick. Are you going to be ready for all these types of scenarios? Right? But this, again, taking splits tells you where in the course do you speed up, where in the course do you slow down. And you might have athletes that do slow down, and you might have some other athletes that speed up. This is where you can modify their training appropriately, right? To help offset that the next time they run the course. Okay, but there are certain workouts that can help prepare you for these types of distances in cross country, which I'm going to get into now. Okay, if you struggle in the final mile, run that part of the workout at a faster than goal pace, or run a longer rep at the goal pace, right? What I mean by that, let's just say the workout is either 5 times a mile for Division 3 or 6 times a mile for Division 1, right? You're getting ready for conference or regionals, whatever it might be. And you're doing, let's just say 6 times a mile at 5-minute pace, just as an example. But a 2-minute recovery or 2-third recovery, say 2 minutes. And you're averaging 5-minute pace, but people are still slowing down races towards the end of that race. Okay, does that mean they're not fit enough? Does that mean they're something needs to be modified in their training? That's more likely scenario. So I would try to run that last mile rep in, let's just try to say 450 or something faster. Try to run it significantly faster than the other miles, or try to add volume to that rep. Take that from a mile rep, add it to a 2K. Okay, at the goal 5-minute pace or whatever it might be. Make the rep longer at the goal pace. These are two ways you can kind of fight towards slowing down the latter part of a race. Okay, and then it gives you some intel as well. Which one's working, which one's not working. Okay, as the more info you have, the better off you're going to be. And this applies to all the different athletes. Some athletes might need to run their last rep faster. Some athletes might need to run that last rep longer, right? Tells you a lot. But again, this is where like I said, where the chess comes into play. I got to put together the final pieces, and whatever I need to do to individualize certain components of the workouts for certain people, I'm going to do. All right, but like I said, example, 5 times a mile, rest 230. You run a final rep as shorter, faster, or you run a 2K rep at the same pace. You can even run that final rep, instead of doing a mile, you can do 2 times an 800 at a significantly faster pace. It's up to you to decide. It really is up to you to decide. Okay? Or tempo runs with the final mile at race pace. Let's just say you're going to run a tempo run at 6 minutes per mile. You try to run the last mile at 5:45 or 5:40. Right? You're going to run a tempo run at 5 minutes per mile. You're going to try to run that last mile at 4:40. Run a tempo run at 5 minutes per mile. You're going to try to run, right? 5:20 per mile. You're going to try to run that last mile at 5 minutes, and so on. Tempo runs are generally going to be, at the very least, the distance of your race, but in most cases longer, right? So this is where you can add some race simulation within the tempo run. The tempo runs are one of the most effective ways of teaching your body and your athletes' bodies to how to continually run hard at a controllable pace without stopping. It simulates the race more than anything else does. Now you can throw some race specificity in the tempo runs. Okay, so that's just a couple of ideas there. Okay, and lastly here, like I said, lengthen the rep or increase the pace in the workouts wherever they fall into races. Okay, so if you slow down in the middle of a race, then you can lengthen the rep in the middle of a race instead of at the end of the race. You can run that 2K rep in the middle of the race. In the middle of the workout instead of at the end of the workout. For women, are training for 6K. If you're running 6 times a K, you can run that, like I said, you can run that 2K rep in the middle. Okay? High school, you're running 5 kilometers. The workout is, let's just say, 6 times 800. You can take that 800 and turn it into a 1200 in the middle of the race, of the workout. Go longer there, right? And then you can progress from current to goal race pace. And workouts over time. I've talked about a workout like this. I don't know if you've heard. Let's just say it's 5 times a kilometer, right? And you're running 5 times a kilometer at your goal, or your current cross country pace. Let's just say you ran 18 minutes for the cross country race, right? In the beginning of the season, with 3:36 per kilometer. So you start the workout there. Okay, you're going to start at 3:36, and what you're going to do is you're going to try to run 4 of them at 3:36, but then you try to run your last one. Let's just say you want to go from 18 minutes to 17 minutes. You can try to run 3:24 or close to it in your last rep. Okay, this is a workout you can do 4 or 5 times throughout the season, every 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Let's just say every 2 weeks. The next time you do it, you do your first 3 reps at your current pace, your last 2 at your goal pace. The next time you do it, you do the first 2 at current pace, the last 3 at goal pace. The next time you do it, you do your first rep at current pace, your last 4 at goal pace. And then the last time you do the workout, you can do all 5 of them at goal pace. So you're adding a rep on the back end of the workout at your goal pace, replacing one of the reps in the beginning at current pace with goal pace. This is a way of systematically adding stuff at your goal pace at the end of the workout and kind of working towards the front of the workout. This allows you to tangibly track your athletes, right? And say, okay, are they progressing? Are they ready for this? And you can see whether it's being backed up in races. Obviously, you want to factor in rolling hills and everything else, but this is a good way of tangibly tracking workouts. Instead of going to Van Cortlandt Park and running 5 times a back hill, unless you're in college, you don't need to do 5 times a back hill. Okay? You don't. Do 3 of them at the race pace you want them to run. Okay? You don't need to take 5 minutes. Take 3-minute recovery. You don't need to take super duper long recoveries. You want to simulate the race as much as you possibly can. And you can even do a couple of short hill sprints in the beginning to kind of simulate, because you're going to be basically going from this to this at Van Cortlandt Park, and then leveling off, and then going into the back hills. You can do that in a workout. Put that in the legs before they go into the back hills. Okay, and then on the back end of it, once they're done with the back hills, you can go back to the bridge and you can do some downhill accelerations. Downhill fast, jog back up. Downhill fast, jog back up. Simulate what the race is going to be. Period. Okay, this is one thing you can do. And then the last point I wanted to mention is you're going back to speed at the end of tempo runs, threshold workouts, and critical velocity workouts. It's those 3 workouts that are going to make you fit enough to hang throughout a cross-country race, flat or rolling hills. The speed on the back end, you put that later, but do you want to, and knowing if you're looking at the race around you, are you a distance runner and you're surrounded by, okay, I have a lot of these half milers and milers who have a lot of leg speed. They're still here, right? So the chance of them out kicking you are probably pretty decent. So this is where you start to do longer stuff. This is where you can kick from 500 meters out, 600 meters out, instead of waiting for the last 200, right? This is where you can mix and match. You can play with stuff in the training to put yourself in a position to take the kick away from a lot of these folks. And again, these folks have a lot of leg speed. You don't want them to be there to be able to try to outkick you at the end of the race. Create a gap before they even get an opportunity to even think about outkicking you. And how do you do that? You have to be fit enough to be able to put yourself in a position to do that. This is why I talk about critical velocity, tempo runs, threshold reps on a regular basis. It's these types of workouts that are going to help prepare you to go into race pace reps, longer reps. Like you can do threshold and tempo in the beginning of the season and then do those back hills in the middle of the season, right? When you're fit enough to recover from them and let it translate into races. And you don't need to do super high volume throughout the cross-country season. Not throughout the whole entire season. Make it applicable to the races that you're doing. Okay, 4 times a back hill, okay, is good for college. Even if you're doing a tempo run where you go right into the back hill and each one gets a little bit faster. 8 kilometers of rolling hill tempos that gets progressively faster. That's a nice workout as well if you're a college athlete and you happen to race at Van Cortlandt Park, right? So I wanted to kind of go over these things, and these are the types of things that put you in a position to improve in a course that you run more than once throughout the cross-country season. Because again, you can see in the beginning, you can say, okay, this is where we're at, and you can go back and look, and this is where I encourage coaches to take splits as often as you possibly can in relevant areas. Okay, even if it's 2 splits, whatever it might be, gives your athletes a chance to say, okay, he or she went out too hard here. They kind of slowed down in the back hills more than we like them to. Let's dial it back a little bit in the beginning and try to make it up in the hills. Because by doing that, puts you in a position to be stronger at the end of the race. Last thing you want to do is be in oxygen debt in a cross-country race, especially when you haven't hit the hills yet. That's a tough thing to navigate, okay? So these are the types of things that put you in a position to make big gains in cross-country. And if anybody has any questions, put them in the comments right now. I want to make sure that you have an understanding of what we're doing here, what I'm talking about. That's why I brought up Van Cortlandt Park, because I've measured it numerous times with a metric wheel. This is where you can attack Van Cortlandt Park, okay, and run a 4K race. Manhattan College is in October if you happen to run it, and this is where it's one of the most premier high school cross-country invitationals in the country, and you're gonna see tons of fast people here. And when the distance runners are running fast races there, then you know they're fit. Okay, and if you happen to be locally in New York or in the Bronx and you do some training at Van Cortlandt Park, there's a lot of things you can do at Van Cortlandt Park to set yourself up nicely for that cross-country invite. Okay, we got a comment. Got a question? Take more splits throughout the season. We stopped doing this because the kids would fixate on them. You can use it for your own data, and you don't have to necessarily share it with them, but you can design workouts accordingly. If the kids go out way too fast and they're not ready for it, right? Then we're going to go out a little bit slower. Then we're going to attack the middle part of the workouts, and you could design workouts accordingly, right? Like I said, you can do the longer rep in the middle of the workout, or the faster reps in the middle of the workout, or you can even modify. Right? This is one reason I talk about other things too, like speed, tempo, speed, tempo in workouts, or tempo, speed, tempo, speed. You can kind of fluctuate stuff throughout a workout to get your athletes ready to adjust to pace changes, because there are a lot of pace changes. And again, I say this a lot recently too. Cross country is the only season where the weather gets colder throughout the season. So the fitter you are, the sharper you're going to have to be, especially for these races at the end. People are running fast, and how you warm up and prepare for these races is going to be one of the determining factors to how well you run. Are your athletes staying warm? Especially if you're warming up outside and you're stretching outside, it's gonna be cold, right? How do you stay warm? And are your warm-up routines on race day the same as they are on workout day, or are they different? And if they're different, why are they different? All important questions to ask. Okay? But multi-Kenny, I hope that answers your question. Again, because the athletes generally will fixate on them. And I think when they're ready to look at them and say, okay, when they're ready to give you concrete, some constructive feedback and say, okay, this is where I need to be better in workouts, then you can probably share with them a little bit more. But it's up to you to decide. It's really up to you. Younger athletes, because some of them will fixate on stats and numbers and so on, right? And they'll get in their own heads. But you can take this data and use it to build your workouts or modify your workouts appropriately, so that your athletes are set up for success. The next time they run that course, they'll be better off in the areas where you want them to be better off, right? So hope that answers your question. Anybody else have any questions? Hope you found this helpful. If you did, hit the thumbs up. If you know any other runners and coaches that you think might find this helpful, please share it with them. Please share this channel with them. I want to help as many people as I possibly can. Okay, but thank you for your questions, Multi-Kenny. It's a good question. It is a good question. It's a very valid question. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap it up? I'll make sure that you guys and gals are feeling confident going to cross country. Now we're here. It's here, right? So are you ready? Are your athletes ready? Is everybody healthy and somewhat decent shape? Do you know at this point, will you see them before the season starts, before school starts? Like this last week of August, will you be able to see your athletes? And if you do see your athletes, will you test their fitness? See where everybody's at? Because testing their fitness at a mile on the track helps you set their training paces up to make sure that everybody's running at the right zones where they need to run. Trying to bring a varsity split with our top runner, running low 16s and our back end and low 18s. Wow, this is what we're talking about too, Multi-Kenny. Like, even the folks, let's just say you want to run the longer reps in the beginning. You run 5 times 1200, just arbitrarily, with a 3-minute recovery, right? And you want the back end people, the people in the back end that run the 18s, to basically try to hang with the people in the front. Well, you can shorten the reps. For the folks that are doing 1200s in the front, you can do 600s or 800s for the people in the back, and try to get them to stick with the front people as long as they possibly can. They'll get more rest, but that's okay. Okay, this is another good workout to do this. Let's just say you're doing 1200s or 1K reps at 16-minute pace, 3 12s, right? Which is 16 flat pace. Just as an example, you try to get the people on the back end to either run, let's just say 600s at 16-minute pace, or 800s at 17-minute pace, right? Ideally, you want them to go from 18 to 17:30, 17:30 to 17 minutes. Well, you can cut the reps in their workouts and just have them run them a little bit faster. You try to get them to hang with the people in the front. I've done this quite a bit as well. So, and you can even have them do whatever it might be. 400s one day at 16-minute pace, and then at 800s at 17-minute pace. And those 800s will help them progress away from 18 minutes towards the faster race. Because ideally, at the end, you want that 18 minutes. If you have a 2-minute split from 16 to 18, you want to get that 18 to 17:30, that 17:30 to 17 minutes. And you're going from 2 minutes split to 1 minute will make a hell of a lot of difference, a ton of difference for your athletes and for your team. So does that answer your question, Multi-Kenny? Does it make sense to you? But that is a way of bringing them together, Multi-Kenny. I would make sure that the athletes in the back end are doing tempo runs at 1740 pace. So something like that, even 1730 pace, so progress them towards. And let me calculate this for you. And if they're not doing tempo runs, I encourage them to do tempo runs. Okay. For progressing towards 1730. Oh, good, Kimball. Can you check this out? Let's pull up 5K. Let's go 1730. So for them, for that group in the low 18s, building towards 611 to 612 per mile, which is essentially high 18s, low 19 pace as a tempo run. Okay, 611 to 612, 611 to 612 per mile for their tempo runs. You can even have them do, let's just say 12 minutes at that tempo pace, and then you can do some reps at 1730 pace at the end of that. Right, 1730 pace at the end of that, and again, 1730 pace. That's 330 per K. Right, 1730. So you can do stuff. You can even have them do that tempo at 12-minute pace, and then try to have them do 2 or 3 times a K at 330. Right? Not necessarily. They don't need to do 5 of them right now. Have them do 2 of them after a tempo. That's a nice addition to the workout. A really nice addition to the workout. Now at 1730, also the equivalent to that is 2 miles, which is 526 pace. So you can have them do 400s at 2 mile pace. You can have them do that tempo run, let's just say 2 times a K and then 3 times a 400. That's the workout, right? 10 or 12 minute tempo, transition to 2 times a K, transition to 3 or 4 times a 400 at mile pace. The 1K reps are 5K pace. And the 400s are 3K pace, excuse me. That's a nice transition from tempo to race pace to fast in the race pace. And you can build on that, Multi-Kenny. These are good early season workouts to incorporate. And that'll give you a good idea of whether they can handle doing more. And even going back to low 18s, like I said, 336, which is and do that. If you didn't hear that workout, the 5 times 1K, and each time you add a rep on the back end, the goal pace. Let's just say you take a 2-minute recovery, a 2:30 recovery. After each rep, you progress from 336, you add a rep on the back end. Let's just say at 330 first, which is 1730. And then next time you do it, add another rep at 330 on the back end. And all of a sudden, you're going from low 18s to mid 17s. That's a nice way to progress your low 18 folks to mid 17s. Right? Does that make sense, Ken? Does that answer your question? Good questions, man. Good questions. This is why I do these live streams, so I can have a dialogue and see if we can be helpful, right? And I've used these workouts with success, a lot of success. All right. Any other questions, Kenny? Any other questions? Thursday, we'll give some better data. Okay. Yeah. See where everybody's at on Thursday. You see where everybody's at, and is this at a course you're going to run multiple times, Multi-Kenny? The one on Thursday? Will you race that multiple times? I would see where everybody's mile split is and see how well they hold on to that pace based on what they run for the mile, right? And then what they come through their first mile. It'll give you an idea of whether they went out too fast, whether they're strong enough to maintain pace, and so on and so forth. And what's this course like, Kenny? Is it a rolling hill course? Is it a flatter course? Because that'll give you an idea too. If the hills are towards the back, the second half of the race, and expect a pace fluctuation there to be a little bit different in the beginning. Once the season's really flat. Okay. Well, we'll give you an idea. We'll give you an idea where they're at, Multi-Kenny, and then you go from there. All right. Good stuff, Kenny. Good luck this weekend. On Thursday, man. Good luck. And hopefully if you're here next Sunday, we can talk about it. So we can break down anyone else in here that's in here listening. We could break down your splits for your athletes. You could bring them here. We could talk about. Maybe we can figure out a way to help you close the gap from your 5 or your 7. That's another point of why I want to do these videos. Any other questions, gang? I want to wrap it up. All right, sounds good, Multi-Kenny. Thanks very much for coming on. Appreciate all of you. Go enjoy your weekend, okay, and have a great cross-country season. We'll be back next week. Talk to you next time.